Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Tuesday. It's March 26th. This will be our chart lesson for the day. And just kind of give everybody a quick heads up. Every once in a while, I get an email about the quality of the video not being very good. Um, Generally, what the problem is once this thing uploads, the video has to process for a little while. You can go ahead and watch it instantly after it uploads, but I'm not sure what YouTube does to them, but somehow the quality is not very good in the first couple of minutes after you upload it. It's 5 or 10, 15 minutes later before the quality becomes relatively decent. So if you are watching it and the quality doesn't seem very good, you might stop it and wait a few minutes and then start it back again and see if that helps you. But it doesn't happen very often, but once a month or so I'll get a email from somebody saying the quality of the video was horrible, and I'll go look, and it's usually within just minutes of after the video's uploaded. So just want to throw that out there in case you try to watch the video and the quality's not very good. You might just wait a minute or two and start over and see if that doesn't fix it for you. If not, I mean, not to say that I couldn't have an issue with the video. Sometimes we've had some sound issues and things like that, but we haven't had any glitches lately. So the only one I've had lately was somebody said the quality wasn't very good. I believe it was yesterday, or it must have been yesterday. And and the problem was he was watching the video within a minute or two after I uploaded it, and for whatever reason, I don't know what, like I said, I don't know what YouTube is doing to them, but evidently they do a fast upload and then they process the video to make the quality better or something. So um, again, I don't know the technical aspects of what they're doing, but that's the gist of it. So anyway, let's, rather than beat around the bush, let's get to the chart list. I'm a little bit later today getting this uploaded and I'm ready to get out of here. So it was a little bit slow getting started today. Um, this is generally what will happen on a day like this. Notice how we're trading up. Well, we closed right here yesterday, and at 8:30 we open up here. So there's a difference between where we closed yesterday and where we open. And people will ask me this all the time. They don't see a, I'll talk about the gap on the daily chart. Well, you don't see it on the overnight chart because there's prices trading within there, so there's price action in there. But if you went to a daily chart where it opens and closes at the 8:30 and 3:15 or whatever time it is, it would close here and open here, so there's a gap there. And daily charts, none of the charts do not like gaps, so they try to fill them really quickly. So a lot of times what you'll see on a real strong trend like this, if there's a gap on that daily chart, prices will try to back up and fill that gap. And notice where the exact low went to right there. If I move this across, I think it just fills the gap. If it doesn't, it's real close. And you can see that is right, basically filled the gap right there. Um, Actually, I don't think that quite fills it because I believe this bar here is in the day after. So it doesn't quite fill it, but it's real close. So it's enough to where, um, I mean, they almost got there. And so that's what, so when you see a big trend like this, and if it starts reversing, uh, it's real common for it to come back that same day or real close thereafter and fill that gap. So they, the prices do not like gaps on the charts, and they're always trying to fill them. So just keep that in mind. And some days the trend will keep going, and this looked like one of those days where it might, because that's a really strong trend right there. But it didn't. We went sideways for a little while. Notice on the two-tier channel working up, we got the break, we moved to a new high, and then we started trending down. And that's pretty much what you would expect to happen on a reversal. So um, a lot of sideways action up here. Prices tried and tried to go higher, and they finally made that new high, and then it was all downhill thereafter until we filled that gap, and then we started trending up again into the close. And so we really closed much higher today than we closed yesterday. I wouldn't say much higher, but we closed higher. So we closed up around, it looks like we closed at maybe 28, 22. And yesterday we closed down here at 2808 or so. So that's a pretty good move for, a couple of hours in one day. So, but just be aware that that's what happens. And so it's not uncommon to see prices back up and fill that gap. Sometimes they'll back up and they'll test a support area a few times and can't get through there, and then it'll reverse, and then that's when I would look for a measured leg up like we had early in the morning. So keep that in mind. But somebody asked me today, how do you know if the trend's going to continue? Well, you don't. You just have to draw your trend lines and watch for the price action to play out. When we got the close here and the new high and it starts going down, well, you got to assume that, hey, the trend up is played out. Now we got one working down, so we're going to start going short now. I did mark one short here earlier. We'll talk about that when we get there. I'm not crazy about taking a short right there, but we'll talk about it. And notice early on we had this one trend, and then we're correct. And at 7 o'clock we were right in this little up area, starting back down here. And so you would have already had this trend in place. Measure that first leg, drag it up, and there's your nice target. And notice where we went to the tick. Basically, we might have missed that by 1 tick. I can't really tell. That looks like we missed it by a tick. Notice how the closes closed right on it though. So that would be your first target, and that's what I'd be shooting for if we start working higher again. So unfortunately, we really didn't, at least on my chart, you don't really get a good setup. Like I said, 7 o'clock came, and this little, we're kind of shooting up and then working back down here. And so there's a possible long in here. You really kind of got a double test right here, right off the EMA and what looks like a midline. So that is tempting, but if you'd have went long right there. Okay, my phone's already ringing. It never fails. As soon as I start this video, my phone will ring off the hook, so I apologize. I'm going to turn the ringer off while I'm thinking about it here, and that way we won't have any more interruptions till I get done. But yes, this is rather tempting here. It's really just a first entry though, so right being in the middle here and with the trend line possibly working down, you need to wait on the second entry. We get that here, not a very good signal bar. We move up and you get your lower high here, and again, it's not a real great setup and it's pretty close to those highs. I marked it green because if you take that low into account, you try to go lower once, twice. It's not a perfect reversal. Everything's still above the EMA. The trend's been up. So, and this actually does swing out both sides. Somebody asked me about that. How do you count that? It's still counted as a move back and a move up. So that's a lower high or a higher low in this case because we're working higher. And I don't know if it went out the top or the low side first. I'm not positive on that. So, and it could have, and your chart may not have done that. I don't know, but I know at least one other person's chart did that. So you may go long right there. You could just wait for this bar to close. It's not bullish enough on my chart. It's more bullish than bearish, but it's close to being a doji. So it's just not a great setup. I marked it green. It's a little aggressive though, in my opinion, and you just don't get another chance to enter. There's a failed second entry short there, but look how far we've moved, how far away we are from the EMA. Of course, our target is probably up here, and there does appear to be a trend line we've been working off of, but I'm just not crazy about that one. We've been too far away from that. That's where you'll get burned at coming back to the EMA. So I don't like any of these. I think you just have to sit through them and wait on the correction. And then notice what happens. Comes back first entry, pulls back, and you get a second entry here. Normally I wouldn't like this second entry because we have a trend line working down, but we do have a low there. We tested it once. We tested it twice. We actually went lower there and turned and went out the other side. That's a nice reversal. You could actually put your buy stop right above that red bar, or you could wait for that one to close and put it 1 tick above that. But I like that bounce right there. There's a higher low right here, but by that time you got several bars stacking up. You may consider that trade. I'll mark it green, but I'm not crazy about it. And of course, there's a failed second entry short right there, but you're going long right into all those highs up there. And we still haven't got back to here. So, and this is really your signal bar. It actually broke below and turned up right there. And that you could look at that as a failed second entry short. So, if you went long there, you could have gotten trapped. I'm not sure if there was enough room for that trade to actually. Your entry would have been 31.75, and that only went to, well, believe it or not, there's just enough room to get out there. So if you did take that trade, it was a good trade. And that's why we scalp for 4 ticks. It's amazing how often you will get just enough movement to scalp out. So actually, I'm not crazy about that trade being into those highs, especially the way that one sets up. But it is a failed second entry short, and you may want to be a little bit aggressive and take that. You're better off to wait on the second entry, and then that comes right here, or in the high or low. Notice pullback first entry, pullback second entry. But that one would have failed, but it's just not smart to go long into all those highs right there. And so, same thing as down here. You're going long into these highs every time, and it's just not a smart move. Especially when you've been moving up and now you're starting to kind of go sideways and it's not really taking off again. It should be taking off. And you already had your measured leg up right here. We just showed you that a minute ago. You already had a measured leg up, so we're probably overdue for a correction. And so you just had to be patient this morning. I mean, there's really one trade that I like here, second entry long. And even this one, with that trend line still being there, if it wasn't for that double test, I'd probably made that one green too. So you had to be real patient this morning. So we're all the way into almost 10 o'clock before you've had another setup here. And what we've done, we just kind of started going sideways. I don't see anything I like across here. Really what you need is a good setup off the lows or a good setup off the highs going short. And we finally notice how we make that low. We get a lower high, it doesn't even break lower, and then we try to go lower again. It fails, and you get that bullish bar. It actually went lower and turned and went out the upper side on this one. Or you could just wait for it to close and put your buy stop and off it goes. I think I missed this trade right here. But notice we're working back up. You get your close outside, you try to go higher once, and then you get that second entry long, it fails, and you got a double test. You made that high, and you try to go higher twice, and look how bearish that bar is. I like going short there. I think I missed that one a minute ago. Because you're really looking at the very least for prices to come back to this trend line. And we're way overdue. Look how long it's been since we were at that trend line. Long way back. Back here at 4 o'clock in the morning. So we're overdue to come back to that trend line. And so we come back here. There's actually a second entry long right here. But again, and it is off that trend line, but again, you've got this trend line working down. That's the first close outside. You could argue that, hey, we kind of broke outside here and then went lower. But I'd want to see at least a higher low. And you get that here, but again, we're outside this trend line. And now look at all that resistance stacking up across there. I don't have a line on there. There's obviously probably a midline in there. Like so. And so we're just kind of working that midline, and that's where you got to be really, really careful. So I don't like any of those trades across there, as I discussed earlier before I realized I missed a trade. That's just not a good place to be entering long. If anything, you may go short off that if you get enough test. There's a nice failed break higher off that midline, but not a very good signal bar. And you don't really get that failed second entry short and set up off the lows with enough room until right here. And you can see that's when the smart traders all jump in and off it goes. And then you fell out the upper side. Again, you probably want to wait on a lower high. You get one here, not a very good signal bar, but look how it pushes back down, pulls up, gives you a failed second entry long, nice bearish bar. That's the place to enter. It's still heading lower. Then it comes back. And it tested again, And now you've really got to notice you made a little, you came through there, you came back and tested that, comes back and tested again, and then it comes back and tested a second time. And this is really kind of congestion, so you could treat that like a little failed break higher as well. I like that short. Plus it's off of this possible trend line right here. And this turns out to be a pretty good move. First really good move we've had other than this one going up. You get a lower high here, but you don't have a lot of room to the low right there. It works. It's a lower high, but I'd want something closer to the EMA. And we're bouncing, and we just kind of get stuck in another little trading range here. This one is real tempting, but look at that support right across there. And look what happens. It bounces right off of it. And then finally, you get a little failed break higher, which is probably going to be enough to probably send it on. But I'd still rather wait on a lower high. And we're not back to the trend line here either. Although with it being a failed break higher, you don't necessarily need that. So that's a possibility. Notice you made that high, tested it once, tested it twice. And it's a failed break higher. It's a big bearish bar. It actually went higher and turned and went out the other side. If you wanted to go short right there and you got enough room to get out down to here, you might consider that one even a little stronger. And then we just start going sideways again. And you don't want to enter in that, even though it's just congestion. You can get trapped if you try to enter either way on a breakout. Even though it continues lower. And also, I don't know if I shared this with you, I would measure that leg, and when we started lower, I'd look for a measured leg. There it is, a perfect measured leg. And that's what I usually use for targets if I'm using runners. People always ask me that. Use these measured legs, and that's what you use, and that helps you find a target. Doesn't mean you're going to ride it all the way out to that very low, but that gives you a general idea where you might expect something to happen. And then we're moving up, and there's actually a failed second entry short there. And this is another one. This is tempting to go short here. It is a second entry short. Notice that low. First entry, second entry. But I drew this trend line off these highs. You can clearly see that right there. I never could find a place. I never could find a place that it fit really nicely. It looks like it's probably right there, but this one was kind of different. If you drew it off the low down here, which is how you generally want to draw it. So let's just say we draw it that way. Man, I can never get the right line. It still doesn't fit real nicely. It fits a little better maybe like that, but it still doesn't fit nicely. We're not getting back up there, but maybe the reason is because we couldn't get through this trend channel here. So when we came back to that and had this, notice all that resistance across there, and we broke higher and we've been doing that all the way down several times where we break higher and fail. And so when we broke higher and failed right off that trend line, I like going short with that big bearish bar. And I would actually measure this leg and come on over here and look for another possible measured leg. We went a little bit lower than that before we bounced this time. But if you draw it this way, there's really no close outside. But once again, you've got that resistance across there, and it's a little failed break higher. But this trend line is the real key. That's your key entry point all the way around. And you might have wanted to wait on a lower high here, but we don't get one till way down here. And notice you make a low, first entry, second entry. And these are 2-bar matching highs, so that still can be your signal bar. And that's a second entry short with a nice bearish bar, and that's another nice move down. And notice you're working down, first entry, pull back, second entry. That's a second entry long that fails. Not a very good signal bar, but if it's a failed second entry long, generally you don't worry too much about your signal bar. But we've moved a long way. I accidentally deleted my midline here. which is right in here. Still don't think I quite got it in the right place. Somewhere right along there. Actually, you see that gap right there? You know those gaps happen at these support and resistance areas. You'll see them over and over, and a lot of times when you're looking for your trend line or your midline or whatever, if you're real close and you see that gap, you can work that gap, and generally you know you got it in the right place. So that doesn't leave you a lot of room there. You're working that midline all the way down here, so that scares me away from that trade. We come back here and there's a double test, but that's a perfect doji. And then finally we come back here and we break higher and then turn and go out the other side. I'm more apt to enter right there. You do have a little bit of room before this low here. So now you've made that high, you've tested it once, you tested it twice. You could actually look at this as a double test. So you might even say, hey, I could enter right there. You could even argue for that to be green at the very least because it is a double test. But I didn't like that one because of the things I talked about just a few minutes ago. It's just a first entry short. Notice that low, first entry. That's one reason. I'm still a little leery about it being a doji because it's a double test. Doji's not really good enough, so you need a failed second entry long, which comes here, and now you got a failed second entry long, you got a second entry, you got a bearish bar, you broke higher there, it looked like we were probably going to make another leg up, and you got people trying to buy when this has been all downhill and there's no buying. And so that's the better place to go short. Hopefully that makes sense to you, because now you got a second entry short. Notice that new high, first entry set. You got a failed second entry long. You've tested that resistance across there multiple times. There's just so many more reasons to like that trade versus the other one there. So hopefully that makes sense. And then of course you move up first entry, back to the key entry point, the main trend line. Second entry short, relatively bearish bar, plus it's a failed break above all that resistance. It's probably going to come back even if it's going to go higher. And that was another nice little short, and then I get you into the 2 o'clock hour. So pretty nice downtrend today. This morning, usually the mornings are your best trading, but there just were not a lot of good entries. Maybe some of your charts looked a little better than mine. There is a second entry long right here. Of course, that's a double top, so that's a new high, first entry, second entry, but the signal bar is not very good. I made that so small you may not can see that. There's just too much stem on that signal bar right there for my taste. You know, the signal bar is the reason we use the signal bar for, you know, to screen our entries. And you know, sometimes people come in here and you'll see some really good trades with a horrible signal bar. But I promise you, if you go and do your chart study, you'll see how many times they fail with a bad signal bar. So it's a good way to filter your trades and screen out some of the trades that tend to fail. So like anything, if you follow the rules, sometimes you'll miss a great trade. But that's just the way it has to be. I mean, there were some nice moves here in the morning, but if we follow the rules, there's no good entries in there, and we just have to kind of watch it. And that's where people get tripped up. They'll watch this thing go and go and go, and then finally they'll decide to enter like right here, and that's when it reverses and they get stopped out, and then it'll take off right back where they were going again. And they'll say, well, I'm going to buy right here finally, and now I know I'm in the right spot, and guess what? It turns on them again. And you just get chopped all to pieces trying to chase trades. So you got to be patient in this business, and you got to wait on the setups. And sometimes good setups, good moves will not have a good setup, and they go without you, and you just have to watch them. But you can't let that bother you, because if you do, the next time you'll jump in there on a bad trade, and you'll get eaten alive. And so don't worry if you miss a trade. Never beat yourself up if you follow the rules and you miss a big move. I try to tell people that all the time. And just like right here, this was a nice little move down, and it is a failed break, but it's not a good setup. And if you'd have taken it, yeah, it worked. But next time, if you'd have taken it here, it would have failed on you. If you'd taken it here, actually those might have worked, but you don't want to be looking for shorts in there. But you know, there's so many times if you'd taken it right here, it would have failed and reversed on you. But that's why we don't enter on breakouts. We look for those to fail, and we fade those trades and trade in the opposite direction of the breakouts. So anyway, this has been 25 minutes. I wanted to get on out of here, so I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.